In 1927, one man in Chicago earned more money than any chief executive in America, and he could not read a balance sheet, hold public office, or legally own a single dollar of it. Mummificate. His organization pulled in an estimated $105 million in a single year. In today's money, close to $2 billion. And every cent of it was against the law. His name was Al Capone. But this is not really a story about one gangster. It is a story about a ladder, a criminal payroll of thousands, and the single quiet man who brought the whole thing down with nothing but arithmetic, because Prohibition had done something extraordinary. In 1920, America made alcohol illegal. Overnight, it did not stop people drinking. It simply handed the entire liquor trade, worth billions, to whoever was ruthless enough to take it. And behind every illegal drink was a ladder of men, each with a rank and a price. The lookout, the soldier, the made man, the underboss, the boss, and behind all of them, the men on the payroll who wore badges. Today, we climb it, rung by rung, and we open the books on every one of them. What each man earned, how each man lived, and who in the end kept the money, and who took the fall. This is Rank and Ledger. In today's episode, Al Capone's Chicago, rank by rank. What a criminal empire paid its people, from the boy on the corner to the boss in the penthouse. We start on the street corner at the bottom, with a boy who is about to earn more in a week than his father earns in a month. One thing before we climb. If you want to see who really gets paid in worlds like this, empires, armies, criminal syndicates, subscribe now and leave a like. It genuinely decides whether this channel survives. You are 16, the son of immigrants, in a cold Chicago tenement. Your father works 12-hour days in a factory for about $25 a week. Then, a man in a beautiful suit offers you a job. Stand on this corner, the man says. If you see a policeman you don't recognize, whistle. That is all. And for that, the boy is paid more in a day than his father makes in a week. The corner is only the start. A sharp boy who keeps his mouth shut gets moved up. Running envelopes of cash between speakeasies, watching a card game, fetching a car. Each job pays more, and each one ties another knot he can never untie. And that is the real price of the easy money. The first envelope is a gift. The second is a job. By the 10th, he knows things that can get him killed, and the only people who will protect him are the ones who own him. This is how the outfit hooked the poor. Not with threats at first, but with money so far above an honest wage that honesty started to look like a fool's game. Above the lookout are the workers who keep the liquor flowing, the truck drivers who run beer through the night, the distillers cooking alcohol in back rooms, the waiters and bartenders in the speakeasies. The outfit employed thousands of these people, an entire hidden economy of ordinary workers, all paid better than any legal job would ever pay them, all pretending not to know exactly what they were part of. A whole city drank on it. Chicago had thousands of speakeasies, hidden behind flower shops and laundries and unmarked doors, all supplied by the outfit. Bartenders, cooks, hat check girls, musicians, all fed by illegal beer. For the ordinary worker, it was the best money of their lives. But there was no pension, no protection, and no way out. The outfit paid generously, and it never, ever let go of what it owned. Here is your first question, and answer it in the comments below. If you were that 16-year-old watching your father break his body for pennies, would you have taken the easy money on the corner? Be honest. Tell me below. Because the money is the hook. And the next rung up is where the boy learns what the money is really for. The soldier is the muscle, the enforcer. He collects debts, guards shipments, and leans on the bar owner who is thinking of buying his beer from someone else. He is paid very well, and for a reason. A reliable gunman could earn $100 a week or more, at a time when a skilled tradesman earned a fraction of that. Good money. But the soldier is paid so well because the job can end his life at any moment. This is Chicago in the 1920s. Rival gangs fight for territory in the streets with pistols and Thompson submachine guns. The soldier lives well and lives afraid because the man sent to kill him is being paid exactly the same wage by someone else. These were the beer wars. Capone against the North Side Gang, led by men like Bugs Moran. Trucks were hijacked, breweries raided, rivals gunned down in barbershops and restaurants. Over 500 gangsters died in Chicago in the decade. The most infamous day of that war came in 1929. 7 men of a rival gang lined up against a garage wall and gunned down. The St. Valentine's Day Massacre. The soldier's world was money on one hand and a garage wall on the other. Now, we climb above the muscle to the men who no longer pull the trigger themselves, but decide who does. The lieutenant runs a crew and a territory, gambling dens, breweries, a district of speakeasies. He takes a cut of everything that happens on his patch and passes a share up the ladder, keeping a fortune for himself. He lives like a wealthy businessman, a fine apartment, tailored suits, a new automobile, dinner in the best restaurants where the staff know never to bring him a bill. On paper, he has no job at all. And that phrase, no job on paper, is the crack that will eventually swallow the entire empire. But we are not there yet. First, the men at the very top. The lieutenants ran real businesses on a massive scale. Gambling houses taking bets around the clock, brothels, breweries producing thousands of barrels of beer. Each was a river of cash, and the lieutenant stood in the middle of the current, soaking. And the clever ones learned to hide the money in plain sight. They bought laundries, restaurants, and cleaning companies, honest businesses on paper, and washed the dirty cash through them. It is why, to this day, we call it money laundering. Above the lieutenant sits the underboss, the boss's right hand, the man who runs the machine day to day so the boss can stay above it all. In Capone's outfit, that man was Frank Nitti, known as the Enforcer. He managed operations, discipline, and the flow of money. He was rich beyond any honest dream, and he answered to only one person. The underboss took a share of the entire operation. Millions flowed through his hands, but he also carried the risk closest to the boss. When the law finally came, the underboss was on the list, right beneath the great man himself. Here is your second question for the comments. The underboss did all the work and took all the risk, while the boss stayed clean above him. Would you rather be the powerful name everyone knows, or the rich man in the shadows? Tell me below. And now we reach the top of the ladder, the boss. The name on every front page, Al Capone. Capone personally was said to be worth as much as $100 million. He wore silk suits and a $10,000 diamond ring. He traveled in an armored limousine and stayed in entire hotel floors. He had not started at the top. Al Capone came up from Brooklyn, a bouncer and bruiser who took a knife to the face in a bar fight and earned the nickname he hated, Scarface. He came to Chicago as muscle for an older boss, Johnny Torrio. When Torrio was nearly killed and fled the city in 1925, the whole operation fell to his young lieutenant. Capone was only 26 years old when he inherited an empire, and he ran it bigger and bloodier than anyone before him. $100 million in the 1920s? Adjusted for inflation, well over $1 billion today. Held by a man who, on every official record that existed, had almost no income at all. He built a walled mansion on Palm Island in Florida with the money. He tipped waiters $100. He bought rounds for entire restaurants. He wanted to be seen, loved, and untouchable. And for years, he was all three. At his peak, he effectively ran the city. He decided who won elections. He decided which laws were enforced. A young man from a Brooklyn slum had bought himself more real power over Chicago than any elected official held. And he had done it in under a decade. Capone was not shy about it. He gave interviews. He funded soup kitchens during the Depression. To much of Chicago, he was a hero, a man who gave the people what the government had criminalized. He famously boasted that they could never touch him. The government tried force first. A small team of incorruptible federal agents, led by Eliot Ness, the men the press called the Untouchables, smashed his breweries and hijacked his trucks. They hurt his income and his pride, but they could not put him away. Because raiding breweries is not the same as convicting a man in court. Capone kept his hands clean of every crime that could be proven. The guns and the raids had failed. It would take a different kind of weapon entirely. Here's the truth. Prohibition never wanted to admit. The law did not stop the drinking. It just handed a fortune to the most violent men in the country and made honest policing almost impossible. The crime did not beat the law. The law created the crime. And to stay untouchable, he spent a fortune buying the one thing money can always buy. People with power. Which brings us to the real top of this ladder, the rung that never appears in any gang chart. Because the highest paid men in Al Capone's Chicago were not gangsters at all. They were the police and the politicians on his payroll. At one point, Capone was paying out around $500,000 a month in bribes, $500,000 every month, to keep the police and the courts looking the other way. Roughly $6 million a month in today's money. It worked. It is estimated he had as much as 60% of Chicago's police force on his payroll at various times. Beat cops earning under $4,000 a year somehow had $200,000 sitting in the bank. He bought politicians too. He poured $250,000 into a single mayor's campaign. In Capone's Chicago, the ballot box and the police badge were just two more things you could purchase if you had the cash. So, the bought policeman, the corrupt judge, the paid politician, these were the true top earners of the whole system, taking gangster money to wear the mask of the law. The ledger of Capone's Chicago ran straight through City Hall. Guns could not stop him. Rival gangs could not stop him. 60% of the police worked for him. And so the man who finally destroyed Al Capone was not a soldier or a policeman. He was an accountant. His name was Frank Wilson, a treasury agent who did not carry the fear that everyone else in Chicago carried. For 2 years, he and his team dug through bank records, receipts, and the outfit's own hidden ledgers, hunting for proof that Capone spent money he had never declared. The government could never prove a single murder against Capone, so they went after the one thing he could not bribe away: his taxes. If he had all that money and had never paid tax on it, that itself was a federal crime. Capone had boasted that they could not collect legal taxes from illegal money. He was wrong. Investigators traced his spending, his hidden ledgers, the money that never matched a lawful income. They built their case not with bullets, but with bookkeeping. In 1931, Al Capone, the man guns could not touch, was convicted of tax evasion, 11 years in federal prison, a $50,000 fine, brought down not for the blood, but for the books. They sent him first to Atlanta, then to the harshest prison in America, Alcatraz, the island from which no one escaped. The most powerful criminal in the country became a number in a cell, cut off from the machine that had made him, and by then, he was already dying. Untreated illness had rotted his mind. The man who once ran Chicago was released a confused shadow of himself in 1939 and died quietly in his Florida bed in 1947. The empire had long since moved on without him, but the machine he built did not die with him. The Chicago outfit he shaped outlived Capone by generations, quieter and smarter, having learned the one lesson that destroyed its founder. Never let them see the money, never let them read the books. So here is the final ledger of Capone's Chicago. The lookout and the worker were paid better than any honest job, and paid in fear. The soldier earned a fortune and gambled his life for it. The lieutenant and underboss lived like kings in the shadows. The boss became one of the richest men in America and lost it all to a tax form. And the highest paid of all were the police and politicians who took his money and called themselves honest men. The man who pulled the triggers went to the wall. The man who counted the money went to prison. And the man who broke the whole empire did it with a pencil and a ledger. In Capone's Chicago, as everywhere, the books always told the truth in the end. So, here is your last question, and it is the one that matters most. Capone gave the people what they wanted, employed thousands, and fed the poor, all against the law. Was he a criminal, a businessman, or just an honest picture of how money really works? Tell me below. I read every comment. If this story held you, do the two things that keep this channel climbing. Leave a like and subscribe to Rank and Ledger, because next time we open the books on a whole new world and a whole new ladder.